And the words that I used were as follows, because it was a very depressed organization. I told them, I used these words, ki you have two choices. One, you die now, or you live with me for 6 months, go by what I'm saying. You may still be dead, but you could be alive. I got a photocopying machine there. File came out, photocopy taken, signed and given. I mean, it was a shocker to many people.
Yes.
A whole lot of people came to meet me. In fact, they came to me and asked me, "Sir, आप ये क्यों कर रहे हैं? इनके पेट पे लात मार रहे हैं." हमने किसके पेट पर? बोले, "सर, कुछ पैसा आता है, इनको दे देते हैं, उनको दे देते हैं." They were candid enough to admit that. हमने को उस गरीब आदमी से तुम पैसे ले रहे हो उसकी नहीं सोच रहे हो.
Hello viewers, after a long pause, we are back with our podcast, Perfect Recipe for Retiring Rich. And this time, I have Anil Ji, an ex-IAS officer, India's Education Secretary, India's ex-Coal Secretary, and author of many books. Also, he is vocal about his thoughts. Anil Ji, welcome to my show. Thank you for accepting to be my guest.
Thank you for inviting me here.
My audience must be thinking, and you must be thinking that what a businessman and specifically a stock picker, a fund manager has to do with an ex-IAS officer. It would be great to know some of your accomplishment and background to relate to our business.
I am not a stockist, nor do I dabble in stocks. But when I got this invite from you, I thought I must have a conversation with someone with whom probably I'll learn more than I would tell you, because this is an area which is totally alien to me. I joined the Indian Administrative Service after having served as a police officer in the Indian Police Service for about a year. This was way back in 1981.
Wow. Okay.
I had my education in Allahabad University, which was at that point in time was known to manufacture civil servants. There were quite a few of them that came from that place. And then I had an initial period of my career was spent in UP. In 1997, I went to Delhi. And from 97 onwards till my retirement in 2018, except for 3 years in between when I came back to UP, the rest of the time was spent in Delhi in various positions in Government of India.
So you have a vast experience of not only managing the state and managing the country, you also have worked in a lot of states. I think a lot of issues you have handled. Now, in our podcast, we talked about how to become rich. And I think my definition of rich is not to have a big mansion and a Ferrari in front of it. I consider people like you rich, and that's why I got attracted, and that's why you're here. So I would like to know from you, what's your definition of rich?
For me, the bottom line is what makes me happy. If I'm happy, I'm rich. Because in monetary terms, you can't define happiness, so to say. Obviously, you have to have some money to live comfortably, and you have your own definition of comfort. But beyond it, it's just a number in a bank.
Absolutely.
Unless you feel good about what you're doing, and that's the bottom line. I use the term kick in my book quite often. And that kick is when you start feeling good from inside. Deep inside you feel very satisfied with whatever is happening. And I had those phenomenal satisfying moments in my career as a civil servant. And I feel enormously satisfied even now. So that makes me feel rich, if that is your definition of richness. Obviously, I do want to live comfortably, but there is a level to which you want to have money in life. But I think the sense of satisfaction is the bottom line. At least for me, it is.
So how do you define that comfortable? For some people, it is $1 million. Some people, it is not even $10 million. So how do
Let me explain this to you.
Yes.
I think most of us spend more money in trying to impress others. And as I often said in Delhi, I've yet to come across anybody driving his own Mercedes car.
Okay.
And the beauty of Mercedes car is driving him yourself, because that's a lovely car to drive.
Absolutely.
And quite a few Mercedes cars, the rear seat is pretty uncomfortable if you're tall.
Yes.
Yet they buy that car. And the logic is very simple. They probably buy it for the neighbor. They want to impress people around that they have it. I mean, I'm using a very generic term here. But I think a lot of our expenditure gets incurred in impressing others. I think for yourself, it's not, you don't require so much money.
Correct.
It is while impressing. The entire fashion industry, the entire advertisement industry thrives on that. I often say, I have never understood why ladies wear 6 inch of heel. I have never worn it, but I'm sure it must be uncomfortable. But they do it.
Yes.
They do it because probably they are trying to impress somebody. And it's not with anybody else. I also fell in that trap at some point in time. When I was in the university, someone mentioned, boss, आपकी आवाज अमिताभ बच्चन जैसी है. So वो आवाज छोड़ दी, मैं अपने आप को अमिताभ बच्चन समझने लगा. मैंने अपने बाल लंबे किए और बेल बॉटम पैंट पहनी, और अब फोटो देखता हूं तो डर लगता है उसे देखकर. सो द फैक्ट ऑफ द मैटर इज ऑल ऑफ अस गेट सक्ड इनटू impressing others.
Absolutely.
The moment you come out of it, then the life becomes comfortable, you become comfortable, money required is not so much. Then you are looking at your own comfort, and that has to be defined by each individual. And I'm not against, such expenditure, provided you enjoy it. So an industrialist friend of mine, his son is doing very well. He has one Ferrari in India, the one in Brussels. और वो अपना छुट्टी वाले दिन जाके चला के आके मस्ती से आके रख देता है. He is not driving Ferrari to impress others. He enjoys driving.
Absolutely.
So I'm all for doing that. Problem arises when you're trying, because then there is no end to it.
Absolutely.
आपका sense of satisfaction, there is a limit.
जी.
But if you're trying to impress others, then where do you go?
Absolutely.
So that's where the problem is.
I'm absolutely with you. In fact, when we point a finger at somebody, 3 fingers points to myself. And I think one get the happiness the moment he starts stopping at the buck at him. But it does not happen. It doesn't come to us so easily.
What? It's not very difficult to explain.
Yeah, please.
वो हिंदी में कहते हैं ना, जो पावे वही जाने.
क्या बात है.
तो जब आपको एक बार महसूस हो गया, आपको किक मिल गई, फिर आप उसको छोड़ेंगे नहीं. बट वो महसूस होने में टाइम लगता है. वाई? बिकॉज वी आर सोशलाइज्ड इन दैट मैनर.
जी.
एज वी ग्रो अप, वी आर टोल्ड टू इम्प्रेस अदर्स. हम पूरे कपड़े दूसरे के लिए पहनते हैं.
जी.
हमारे टाइम पे, आपके टाइम पर नहीं पता, हमारे टाइम पे कभी कभी ये समझ में नहीं आता था कि पैंट पहन के सिलवाइए, सिलवा के पहनिए. इतनी टाइट पहनते. तो आई एम श्योर इट मस्ट बी अनकंफर्टेबल. फैशन के लिए पहन रहा. अब मैं जाता हूँ इधर उधर, तो आई एम अ बिट ऑब्जर्वेंट. आई हैव ऑलवेज बीन ऑब्जर्व. अब मैं देखता हूँ वो उसको क्या बोलते हैं, बाल कटाने की दुकानें इतनी ज्यादा हो, इतना महंगा हो गया बाल कटाना.
Yes,
है ना? और जब मैं कभी कभी देखता हूँ कमरा से बाहर निकला, उस सैलून से बाहर निकला, तो जैसे अंडाकार होता है ना, कि ऊपर कटोरा रख दिया, नीचे सब साफ कर दिया, उसके वो इतने सारे पैसे ले लेता है भाई. मतलब एक तो जोकर बना देता हूँ, पैसे भी ले लेता हूँ, हम तैयार है देने के लिए. दैट्स व्हाट द वर्ल्ड टेल्स अस. सो इट्स दैट इज डिफिकल्ट टू लिव विद,
Absolutely. It's very endless. But still, Anil ji, I have a question that there would have been a time when you, as you rightly said, you do. And I meet a lot of investors who are filthy rich and they're at 67, 70 of their age. And when I talk to them, I feel that they would have been very aggressive in their early age. And when I ask them what has changed you, then they always come with either a stroke or a heart attack or some incident in life where they were shaken. So is there an incident?
No, actually, मुझे तो लगता है this happens only in films.
Okay.
एक incident हो गया ना. You learn gradually.
Okay.
Unlike the fast-paced production of manufacturing units, आदमी का बहुत gradual होता है.
जी.
मतलब there could be stray examples where एक झटके से हो गया, और फिल्मों में भी ऐसी होता है. But you learn, धीरे धीरे मार पड़ती है, सीखते हैं, फिर मार पड़ती है, फिर वो तराश, जैसे धीरे धीरे तराशा जाता है जीवन.
So कहीं ना कहीं संस्कार की बात कर रहे हैं हम यहाँ पे.
संस्कार तो आपके जो पेरेंट्स डालते हैं वो आ जाते हैं.
जी.
वो तो है ही, दैट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट.
जी.
बट संस्कार आपको कई जगह से मिलते हैं, खाली घर से नहीं मिलते. घर से तो मिलते ही हैं,
बिल्कुल.
स्कूल से मिलते हैं, जिनके साथ आप रहते हैं. दैट इज वाई आई फोकस अ लॉट ऑन द कंपनी दैट यू कीप, बिकॉज आपको बहुत संस्कार कंपनी से मिलते हैं. आप किस कंपनी में हैं, बिकॉज यू, वेदर वी लाइक इट और नॉट, वी एब्जॉर्व व्हाट इज अराउंड. एनवायरमेंट से एब्जॉर्व करते हैं. और आसपास अगर अच्छे लोग हैं, दे आर गुड पीपल, यू इम्बाइब दोस. और गड़बड़ लोग हैं तो यू इम्बाइब दोस. आप देखिए, सिगरेट ले लीजिए, जो मैंने आपको अमिताभ बच्चन का बताया, सिगरेट का. अब सिगरेट हमारे टाइम पे शत्रुघ्न सिन्हा साहब जो है सिगरेट पीते थे चलने निकाल के, जिन्हें कितने बच्चों ने सिगरेट पीना शुरू कर दिया. और जो उस कंपनी में रहते थे वो भी सिगरेट पीने लगते थे. बिकॉज देन यू फील लेफ्ट आउट, कि ये बाकी कर रहा है, मैं नहीं कर रहा. ऐसी ड्रग का है. ड्रग आदमी अकेले में नहीं करेगा, वो जो सीखेगा शुरू में किसी के साथ, फिर चाहे अकेले करने लगे. सो संगत बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है.
जी.
द कंपनी दैट यू कीप, वेदर एट होम तो आपके पेरेंट्स हैं ही, आप यू कांट अवॉइड देम. सिबलिंग्स हैं, यू कांट अवॉइड देम. बट जब आप बाहर निकलते हैं घर से, जो कंपनी आपकी बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है.
बहुत आपने नायाब बात कही. एंड यदि मैं एथिक्स की बात करूं, वन ऑफ द कोर वैल्यू वी हैव इज ऑनेस्टी एंड एथिक्स. And I think somewhere you also mentioned Swami Vivekananda to me, we were talking. Now, what is, according to you, is ethics and
See,
transparency?
very simple. I had this habit of making every complex thing very simple.
Okay.
For me, ethics is what is right and what is wrong.
Okay. And how to decide right and wrong?
That's individual. Your personal perception will determine what is your value system. So I may be a non-vegetarian. For me, that is okay. You are a vegetarian.
Yes.
So for you, it's not. But there's no permanent right or wrong. मेरे लिए सही है, आपके लिए सही है. हर आदमी को decide करना उसके लिए क्या सही है. Problem तब आती है when there's a disconnect between what you think is right and you do something else.
Absolutely.
That is where the problem starts. And much of the problem is on account of that disconnect. आप हैं कुछ और, बनना कुछ और जा रहे हैं. वही 6 इंच हील मर्सिडीज, आप हैं कुछ और, बनना कुछ और जा रहे हैं, वहीं आप गिरेंगे धड़ाम से नीचे. So it is your understanding of right and wrong. Even that is determined by the way you have been socialized, the way you have come up. Because आप वेजिटेरियन घर में रहे तो आप वेजिटेरियन हो गए. हम नॉन वेजिटेरियन हमारा खाते तो हम नॉन वेजिटेरियन हो गए. So how is it determined? अगर if it was fundamentally wrong, it shouldn't have happened.
Absolutely.
But there are certain fundamental wrongs which are accepted by the society as a whole.
जी.
That is where the larger ethical value system comes in.
Absolutely.
Or the values of the society that you live in.
Like jiyo or jeene do. Yeah, that's one thing. So ethics is what you have explained. Now, what about the integrity? Because we also have a core value of integrity. So how do you define integrity?
Integrity is something which you do when no one is looking at you.
Okay. Oh, wow.
You know,
I'm watching myself.
Yeah. When somebody is watching you and you do something, okay. But you feel deep inside you that that is the right thing to do and you do it irrespective of what others think because they are not there.
Yes.
So that's integrity. And that is long lasting. So you can be honest in a moment, but if you have integrity, you'll be honest throughout, irrespective of the moments that you are in. So it's more fundamental in that sense. Integrity is very fundamental aspect of honesty.
So I have a question. So let's say you commit a mistake. Let's say in your book, I also read that somebody has fired an IS officer by mistake. Let's say that person is you. Will you accept it? Will you tell everybody about it?
No. I looked at it differently over a period of time. That I didn't come across anybody who didn't commit a mistake. Everyone has committed a mistake. I mean, the best people, even Mahatma Gandhi, his entire book, My Experiments with Truth, is actually his mistakes. But he had the courage to admit those mistakes.
Wow.
So if you want to improve upon, the first step is to admit.
Okay.
If you put it under the carpet, that's like a wound.
Okay.
If no sunlight is given, it will become worse. So you have to admit it. That is one. Number two, realize the fact that everyone commits a mistake.
Yes.
So don't feel guilty about it.
Great.
See, admission doesn't mean that you're feeling guilty about it. You admit with a view to understanding the cause of that mistake, and then you work towards ensuring that you don't commit that mistake.
Absolutely. Okay.
So that's the whole process. Then mistakes become a learning thing. And hence, and thereafter, you don't commit the same mistake again.
Yes.
If you don't go through this process, you'll keep committing those mistakes.
Yes.
And that will become a habit then.
Right.
See, once it happens once, you repeatedly do it, it becomes a habit. Then it's very difficult to get over that mistake.
I got my answer. So you as an IS officer must be on your toes all the time for a lot of number of years. But
Not
But
really.
when you not really.
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, you are on toes on occasions,
yeah.
but not all the time.
Yes.
I mean,
but how is the difference you find between the retirement life? Like you loved that life more, or you love this life more?
see, I have written in my book, not just a civil servant, that I became an IS officer because my father wanted me. But I loved the job so much that in the last chapter of my book, I write, if I were to be born again, I'd like to be an IS officer. That's the extent of love for the service.
Amazing.
I could never imagine that post-retirement life would be even better. So I am enjoying it even more for the simple reason. There were some constraints when I was a civil servant. I could not speak very freely because you are bound by the code of conduct.
Yes.
You couldn't decide always that the people that you'd want to sit with, there were some people you didn't like, yet you had to sit with them as a civil servant. Post-retirement, pure freedom. I decide who I want to sit with. I decide where I have to go. I decide what I have to speak. I mean, now even if an opportunity arises, I will find it very difficult to accept that opportunity in government. Maybe I will, but it will be a very difficult decision because I'm thoroughly enjoying this existence.
Yes. No, absolutely great to have somebody who is so transparent. And I think you also made a lot of organization transparent, specifically the coal industry of India.
I had this habit, contrary to the reputation which I enjoyed of being a very hardworking officer, I wasn't. So the way that I could make it easy was use technology to bring in systems in whatever I did and do away with discretion. So if I don't have to decide and it's decide, most of it is decided through a systemic approach, मेरा काम तो कम हो गया. And that can only happen if I make this system transparent. And transparency, the best instrument available for transparency is technology. Now, all this that I did during the last 10 years of my career, it would have been difficult if technology was not available. So when I, in coal or in PMG or in school education, when I dispensed with files and papers, people find it difficult. You can't think a government office without file or paper. And I had offices without files and paper.
Yes, you mentioned it.
So that being the case, it made my task very easy. For example, I was very fond of traveling because I felt that you have to understand the ground reality in order to come up with policy. So I used to travel so often. This use of technology enabled me to clear the files while traveling. Now, this was unthinkable at some point in time, but I had never any file pending with me, so to say.
But how did you get in love with technology?
Oh, it started very early in my career. Way back in 1991, when I was district magistrate at Lakhimpur Kheri. I've given this instance in my book. That was my first brush with technology. We have a revenue record room where all records are kept.
Yes.
And people apply application for getting copies of their land records and things like that. And so much corruption was there. Corruption, which I understood, was speed money. Meaning thereby, if they wanted to expedite and get a copy early, they had to pay up somebody.
Money, yeah.
Okay. So I had gone from Lucknow and I had seen a photocopying machine in Lucknow. But in the district, there was no photocopy. I said, if we just put a photocopying machine here, then it will do away with all corruption. Because the process was, they used to get the file out, then someone used to copy from the file another piece of paper. Another chap used to see whether that copying is correct. And the third chap used to sign it. So it went through 3 layers. I got a photocopying machine there. File came out, photocopy taken, signed and given. I mean, it was a shocker to many people.
Yes.
A whole lot of people came to meet me. In fact, they came to me and asked me, "Sir, आप ये क्यों कर रहे हैं? इनके पेट पे लात मार रहे हैं." हमने किसके पेट पर? बोले, "सर, कुछ पैसा आता है, इनको दे देते हैं, उनको दे देते हैं." They were candid enough to admit that. हमने को उस गरीब आदमी से तुम पैसे ले रहे हो, उसकी नहीं सोच रहे हो. So that was my first taste of technology. Then I got hooked on to. I'm not a technologist. I can barely operate my laptop, but I know how technology can be used.
Oh, that's
so
right.
I used it to the hilt.
Technology is, I think, is very important in this era. I think even the podcasts are a great way to
Yes,
reach the audience. And every one of us are a hero in a manner. We all have a story to share. And I think the organization called Nexus for Good, what you have been doing is absolutely a great thing. Good to be part of it. Now, I would like you to also tell about your investing journey. What made you to invest in mutual funds? How it happened?
Initially, I didn't have money to invest. I mean, I had just got money to. When I retired, as luck would have it, I started getting money, a lot of money, for just talking. I never thought it would be. So first thing that I did was I bought a house for myself. I didn't have money to buy I had a small house. I wanted slightly bigger.
So you bought a house after the retirement?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had bought one earlier, but it would have been difficult to live in that. In a very
I'm very happy.
place.
Yeah, great.
So I earned money and I bought a new house.
Yeah.
And then I had some surplus money. And since I had no clue about the markets, I was told mutual funds are the best way. So I trust people around.
Yes.
I think they're doing a decent job. I'm getting decent amount of appreciation on.
We actually call it a financial health. Many people do a mistake that they start investing on their own thinking that money is theirs. It is more like if you got a chest pain, you go to a best doctor in that town and you trust him. And that is what our message to everybody.
I somehow reveled on trusting people. That was one thing that held me a lot.
How did you develop that? Not easy. It is not easy.
It's difficult, but to begin with, I probably was lucky to come across very fine people.
Yes.
And my initial trust was not betrayed. So probably had it been betrayed, I would have thought twice. But initially I had this experience of enjoying that trust, and they also enjoying my trust in them. And so they put in heart and soul. And much of my success in the initial years of my career came because of delegating a lot of things. And I got into the habit of delegation.
I'm with you. Without that, we can't grow. But even Warren Buffett, in the latest letter, he mentioned that we had 2 types of people. One who are trustworthy but not performing, and one who might perform or not perform, but they're not trustworthy. And the second is not tolerable. I'm sure it would have happened with you.
One thing that we do in the Indian Administrative Service, which I'm proud of, is I have no expertise except for understanding people.
Amazing.
I can sit with anybody for half an hour and make a good assessment of him. How good, how trustworthy he would be, what he is good at. So whichever organization that I joined, I used to make it a habit to spend at least half an hour with the next layer of management.
Okay.
Very intensive discussion to make an assessment of what he's good at. Not merely the trust part, but everyone has his own area where he's good at. And as a leader, I thought that I should make that assessment myself.
Right. So you have met so many great CEOs and the entrepreneurs. Our job is also to understand these great companies and the culture behind them. And only by meeting the management, we do that. So what do you look in a person? How do you observe?
First of all, as he's conversing with you, his body language, the eye contact, the confidence with which he's speaking, whatever he's speaking, is there any contradiction in what he's saying? Is there consistency in what he's mentioning? All these aspects come to bear as you start assessing an individual.
Okay.
Sometimes you may wrongly assess him, but my experience has been, in most of the cases, you are able to assess that.
But you still have to monitor them, right?
So I don't use the word monitor.
Okay.
No, I hate it to use because I hated to be monitored myself. I used to provide the contours which I wanted of my office.
Okay, the framework. Yeah.
Then I used to develop systems through which there were reporting systems. And I used to look at the indicators. And if, say, for example, a particular indicator is not doing well, instead of shooting a nasty letter, I used to have a conversation with that. And the conversation used to be, yaar, ye ho nahi pa raha hai, koi problem aa rahi hai kya? Can I be of any help to you? So instead of monitoring, I was more of a facilitator. And that helped again. That helped enormously because the guys I was working with also felt easy to open up and tell me their problems. Because if I were only monitoring, they will give us that an excuse. We were not partners in movement, then I would be imposing myself, you find your own solution, I couldn't care less, you give me these results. That could be one approach. But I used to jointly sit with my team members, sometimes in smaller groups or sometimes one-on-one. Because in smaller groups, because solution sometimes emerged from another member of the team.
Ji.
He may not be directly involved.
Absolutely.
So it used to be open conversations where we came to solutions to the problems which were not considered to be individual problems,
Absolutely.
but of the organization, where we could sit and have a chat.
So from the management, now we have reached leadership. And I think you're talking about the leadership here.
Yes, it is.
So your leadership style is were you asking them like on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis?
No, depending on what the nature. So for example, it was coal production. So obviously I was not going to the mines individual. I used to look at, say, fortnightly coal production figures and then have a chat with Chairman Coal India. यार ये थोड़ा कुछ कम आ रहा है, कोई problem है क्या?
Okay.
Instead of, some of us would shoot a letter कि production कम हो गया, ये हो रहा है.
By the person.
I never wrote letters.
Okay.
I spoke to people.
But sir, sometime, Anilji, when you become very, let's say, a person of, people start considering you a friend, and then it is very difficult for them for us to basically instruct them that you have to do your job properly.
No, it's different. I mean, you are friend with them, but they know that I'm a very hard taskmaster.
Okay.
They know it.
Okay.
Because the signals are there. I would announce.
So you're a compassionate leader.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know what term you can call it. I was very considerate as far as they was concerned.
Okay.
But if I find anything wrong, I would take him to cleaners. And this would be done one-on-one. But sometimes to signal to others in company of others also.
Okay.
That I can take you to the cleaners. You also, fortunately, unlike, I don't know about private businesses, in government you develop a reputation.
Ji.
They know ये गड़बड़ काम करेगा नहीं. He's a very hard taskmaster. He will take you to cleaners अगर गड़बड़ किया तुमने. तो ये सब reputation वो बड़ा आसान हो जाता है.
Even the private organization, the reputation is everything. Reputation is the biggest wealth I think we all create, and reputation will take us to miles. Now coming to the entrepreneurs, basically you have also handled a lot of PSU as a CEO. Now, what should be the 3 core focus area of a CEO according to you? See,
unlike private sector, in government, whether PSU or otherwise, you work under enormous amount of limitations.
Yes.
So recruitment is not with you. You can't chuck anybody out. So there are limitations. You can't promote anybody out of that you can do out of turn promotion in the private. So there's hardly anything. So what are the tools available to you to motivate people? That's the key.
Yes.
In a government
I would like to know
office, in a public sector organization, what are the tools? And I had that experience when I headed a loss-making state finance corporation as its MD. And my job was to wind it up.
Yes. Oh.
My job was to wind it up.
And you actually turned it around.
We turned it around. 8 years consistent losses. When I walk into that August building in Lucknow, pickup, I mean, it was like walking into a graveyard because all the employees thought that I'm going to take the job away.
Yes.
And I was also disturbed.
Okay.
What sort of an organization I've got into. I spent sleepless nights.
Oh.
And then I got an idea probably on the 13th or the 14th night. I mean, my wife used to ask me, kya ho raha? I used to toss and turn. Because I want to do something that had become my nature by then, to do something. So I got this idea. Ideas are important, but then implementation. But the idea was very, very important. This organization was taking line of credit from SIDBI and lending it to industry. And when industry became sick, they entered into a one-time settlement, wrote off all the interest and settled for principal. And to their principals, that SIDBI, they paid interest.
Yes.
So that was screwing up the balance sheet.
Yes.
So I came up with a very simple idea. I didn't have too much idea about finances. My idea was very simple. I said, okay, let me try and get some interest from the industry. Let's not write off all the interest.
Okay.
Why should I write all that? And then talk to SIDBI to write off interest.
Yes.
Just reverse the process.
Yes.
Okay.
I read that actually.
Now, how do you do it? This is an idea. So first thing that I do is, and that I always did, was to share these ideas with people who are going to execute it. So I called all 300 officers in the committee room, in the hall, and shared my thoughts with them. I always believed you should you should try and not impose your decisions on your team.
Amazing.
It's a shared decision.
Amazing.
The moment I shared it, almost 99% of them agreed with this approach. एक आध रहे होंगे.
Common sense, yeah.
And then I worked out a strategy with them. So it ceased to be my decision. It became a decision of the entire organization. And the words that I used were as follows. Because it was a very depressed organization. I told them, I used these words. Ki you have two choices. One, you die now. Or you live with me for 6 months. Go by what I'm saying. You may still be dead, but you could be alive. And this is what I have. And then what I did was, the other point, I'm going one by one. Then I said there are sacrifices involved. And I am not asking all of you to sacrifice. As a CEO of the organization, I am sacrificing these things. These are facilities which are eligible for me. I am sacrificing them. So travel, class by which I travel, all that I sacrificed. I said, I am sacrificing this.
Okay.
I leave you to decide whether you want to. Believe me, everyone sacrificed. Wow. Now, this got the team together.
Okay.
Because they were common in the sacrifices, they were common in the decision making, they were common in the drive. And then positively, what I was trying to do was, I was trying to do things which I had to do, and then the others were doing what they had to do. So, for example, I had to negotiate with MD SIDBI.
Yes, that's
and
interesting.
Push him, probably in an unethical way, to write off interest.
Yes.
Which he agreed.
Yes.
And that was a game changer. And then calling over, now this is another thing which I used to do. I used to try and change people. In some cases I succeeded, in some I failed. Here was the most corrupt general manager of the organization who helped me recover most of the amount. And then when I gave him, I used to appreciate him in public. And that's the other point. To me, the biggest motivational tool is a pat on the back. And we don't sufficiently appreciate our team.
Yes.
So I was there, and I had developed that reputation by then, that I would take all the blame and pass on all the credit. That did wonders in all organizations.
Wow.
They knew if there is anything wrong, this guy will stand up and take the flak. If there's credit, he will distribute it to others. So these were the tools that I used there. Many more tools, but these were the tools.
You have the sacrifice, delayed gratification, and then you also encourage these employees to right path. Many of my CEOs who are listening and watching the podcast, Warren Buffett said that turnarounds are seldom turnarounds. And when I read about this turnaround of pickup, and also now he's in front of me, I think we all need to take a cue, and we should never lose hope. And that's a great example of how one can turn around an organization. So coming to the man management, because I think an IAS officer has to deal with a lot of people in the district as well. And I think when we even have the second employee, the politics starts in the office. And obviously the successful people have a lot of people being managed by them. Should we proceed to the man management?
See, first of all, you should be very transparent in your functioning.
Okay.
Transparent in the sense that treat everyone as equal, at least to begin with.
Okay.
Don't go with biases. All of us have biases.
Yes.
The regional biases, the language biases,
Yeah. Behavior biases.
professional biases.
Yes.
A leader cannot afford to have those biases. His only bias is towards the organization. That's the ultimate bias.
Okay.
No other bias.
Okay.
Anything that serves the purpose of the organization, that's it. Right. Irrespective of who he is, where he is, it doesn't really matter. So that is one. If you are objective, and I'm assuming that you're good at assessing people, then you will be able to assign the right job to the right people. This is very important. Making assessment of your team is extremely critical because each individual is they may have come from the same management institute, but still one is different from the other.
Absolutely.
The job of the leader is to assess, this guy is good at negotiation. This guy is good at marketing. This guy is good on the file. This guy is good at, talking to people. Whatever be, you identify what are the strengths of those people. And then if you can assign those jobs to them, it works brilliantly because he feels fulfilled. Otherwise, he's fish out of the water. You give him an assignment which he's not good at just because he's so and so, there is a problem.
Yes.
So I didn't allow anybody to meddle in managing people below me. In government, it happens, phone will come, usko ye kaam de do, usko. I said, no, आप अपना काम बता दो, मैं देख लूंगा, अगर सही होगा कर दो, हो जाएगा. But किसको क्या काम देना, you don't tell me. Yes, you can give me an input that he is good at it. I'll make an assessment and do that. I used to take a lot of feedback about people from others. But the decision was mine.
Okay.
I didn't take too many other decisions. Once I decided this guy is to be fitted there, then I left it to him. Total delegation. You are the boss. All my joint secretaries, when I was called secretary, were like secretaries, Government of India.
Wow.
They knew जो वो करेंगे, secretary साहब तो endorse करना ही करना है. So they felt very powerful.
Yes.
Powerful in the sense of delivery, not powerful in the sense of being abrasive to people,
Absolutely.
throwing people out.
Absolutely. No, I'm absolutely. I think you believe in teamwork. You are part of the team. And today, I think I call it humble leadership. And that is the only way one can take the life ahead. Now, this bull of a stock market is looking at you, and the markets are also a great place. What make you also an optimist? Because they say a great investor is optimistic. And
I'm a diehard optimist for the simple reason
yes,
that I am not bothered about issues over which I have no control whatsoever. No, absolutely no control. I mean, and that I learned very early. Why fret over issues over which you have no control?
yes,
Why fret? I mean, what can I do to
Yes.
except wasting my time? And we waste so much time over issues which. Now, for example, if the stock market is going up or down, I mean, can I do anything about it? I can't. So why should I spend sleepless nights?
Yes.
So let me see the opportunity in it.
yes,
I am positive because it helps me. It makes me feel good.
Yes.
It's a very selfish way of looking at it.
yes,
Because I feel if I'm negative, it will impact me. So purely from a selfish point of view, I'd rather be optimist than a pessimist. Look at the positives of what you have. And the experience tells me that if you're optimist, if you're positive, then the chances are that you will improve.
Yes.
Now, how much you will improve is very difficult because there are so many things beyond your control. But within that domain, you will be able to do much better if you're an optimist. Again, a very practical way of looking at it. If you're negative in your approach, then the chances are that you will not do well. So it's a very practical way of being positive. There's no other reason why I'm positive. I'm positive because it helps me. As simple as that.
Okay. So that's very well said. You would have also gone through a period of stress. Maybe it's personal life, professional life. What's your message to my audience for stress management?
Stress is like stock market, no? Going up and down. You know, life is कभी जिस दिन हार्ट बीट सीधी होगी उस दिन तो मर गया आदमी. तो ऊपर नीचे होता रहता है यार.
Yes.
So one must accept it as a fact of life that stress is bound to be there. Now, when you are stressed or when you are anxious, you have to ponder and think over why. Now that stress could be internal, it could be external. For the external inputs that come and make me stressful, I can't do much. So since I can't do much, why worry about it?
Yes.
For internal factors, I would reflect and see if I can work on those factors and get away with the stress. And finally, in the understanding that no situation remains forever, good or bad. It keeps changing. That being the case, is transitory. If it is transitory, why am I fretting over it unnecessarily? So you have to rationalize, and once you understand and analyze and reflect, then you come to certain conclusions which may not give you total peace, but substantially better off than being unnecessarily agitated over issues over which you have no control.
I think the one thing very important I would like to ask you on the honesty. Now, when I started my career, I had a choice, but thankfully God's been kind and I chose the honest path. And it's very difficult to start with, and I'm sure you share the same.
Even dishonest path is very difficult nowadays. You know, 2 chief secretaries of my state went to jail. So it's not easy.
Yes.
We don't notice them. We notice only people who are thriving. The dishonest people
Yes.
thriving, you notice them.
Yes.
And honest people who are suffering, you notice them.
Yes.
You don't notice honest people thriving. You know,
Yeah.
I have come across so many honest people thriving, but we notice them. अरे यो देखो यार कितनी गरीबी में रह रहा है. अरे नहीं यार मैं तो अमीरी में रह रहा हूँ. कई लोग रह रहे हैं अमीरी में. दूसरा dishonest people, you see only thriving dishonest people. अरे भैया जेल में जब गया तो क्या कह रहा था? गया था ना जेल में. So I think life is tough, as I say. मुख्तसर सी जिंदगी का जब से अफसाने. या तीर भी चलाने, परिंदे भी बचाने. So it's tough.
It's tough.
Now the question here is, what do you opt? The beauty is that you have a choice.
Yes.
At least in the government service. I don't know about the private businesses. In government, you have a choice. If you say कि ये बदमाश है, ये कर रहा है, तो गलती आपकी है. Because there are, I know so many honest officers who've done well in life.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not saying only honest officers. I'm saying who've done well in life. They are so happy with themselves. So you have an option.
Yes.
आप ना करो तो आपकी गलती है, उसकी गलती थोड़ी ना.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. And I think that is the point when I saw in dishonesty you may thrive at some point, but after all you will end up in jail. And I think that is what one thing has taken me to spirituality, and मंजिल after मंजिल मिलती गई. आपने स्वामी विवेकानंद.
मैं तो actually I don't know what spirituality is all about.
Okay, you told mention to me.
So I look at it very practically. I'm a practical man. I look at it practically. मैं तो कहता हूँ इसमें मुझे अच्छा लग रहा है, मुझे लाभ मिल रहा है, मैं करूंगा. नहीं मिल रहा है, नहीं मिल रहा. बाकी तो मालूम नहीं क्या है स्पिरिचुअलिटी, मुझे नहीं पता.
नहीं, बहुत अच्छी बात है. गॉड से डायरेक्ट कनेक्शन है आपका. स्वामी विवेकानंद के बारे में आप मुझे बता
देखिए, स्वामी विवेकानंद impacted me quite a lot.
जी.
I was going through a bit of a crisis after class 12. I was a very good student, but at that point in time there was some lack of clarity. ये तो clear था civil service में जाना है. But it happens in everyone's life. You start doubting your capabilities. That is when I read Swami Vivekananda, and it made me believe in myself. Because when I read about him and how he went about building your own personality, on focusing on what you can do rather than worry about others, that helped me to understand myself. And then I picked myself up.
Yes, focus on
and it helped me phenomenally. Even now when I discuss this, I get goosebumps. Because that single booklet, it was not even a book or Swami, a booklet I brought at the railway station. And while traveling from Lucknow to Allahabad, where I had just joined, I read that book and it was transformational, that book. And I still remember how it impacted me, how I thought over it. And then I started wondering that why am I so hassled about these surroundings? You have enormous strength in yourself. If you focus on building those strengths, you can evolve as an individual to be reckoned with. And that changed me.
You are such a great speaker. You have a great experience as an administrative person. If you would have not been IAS officer, what would have been alternate career?
I would have probably taught somewhere. I would have been a professor in university.
Why not a CEO of a company?
I am not very good at that. You know, I don't know, since I have not been a CEO in the private sector, I can't comment on how it works. I mean, it's all what I've seen.
You've seen all of them, by the way?
No, I've seen them, but I have not worked. I have not been in their shoes, so to say, inside. So I don't know. And I always thought if I didn't make it to the IAS, I would probably teach somewhere.
Okay. And as a Coal India secretary, the shareholder matters to you because shareholder is a listed company.
I didn't bother about what the share. I mean, I was later on told that your time, the share price went the highest. It went up to about 415.
Okay.
I was told.
Okay.
Because they also told me the day you joined, the share price is shot up. I don't know whether it impacted. I don't know whether my joining it made a difference or not. I couldn't care less. I did my job. But there were, as they say, consequences which you would not have visualized.
But the incentives of this PSU also align with the growth of the company. Are you also as benefited?
I had no clue because I had no incentive there, no financial incentive to us.
Okay.
I was doing my job. A job was given to me, a crisis was at hand. I mean, as I said, when I took over as school secretary, rang up a friend of mine and asked him, "ये sector कैसा?" कहता gangs of Wasseypur देखी है क्या? So my job was to set it right. It didn't really matter to me what the stock was doing. I mean, incidentally, it improved, which is okay.
No.
But it didn't improve because of this. It improved because the coal production increased.
Yes, but I think that also you have a role to play.
I had a bit of a role to play in the sense that real credit should go to Chairman Coal India.
Yes.
My job was to manage the environment, as it were, to interact with state governments, to get them the land. It was very difficult to acquire land, to get environment and forest clearances, to engage with the railways to get rakes. All that I tried to do because that Coal India couldn't do, but the digging part they did.
Okay. I have a question. Like a lot of NRIs and Americans, and you also have gone to Harvard and other Berkeley University, where you have talked about India, and people love your view because you have the goods and you have the bads. You see it from an unbiased lens, and many of our investors would like to also invest in India. Is India changing, and how fast?
Oh yes, India is changing. India is going to, I mean, as I said, I'm an optimist, and India has enormous potential. Enormous potential. Some of it has been realized. More would be realized in due course. With so much crashing all over around the world, India is a stable economy,
Yes.
Growing pretty well. There are problems there. It's a huge country. There are so many variations within the country. So there are problems. But I think I'm very positive about it, what is happening in India. And investors have a huge opportunity there. Apart from the market part, the potential is phenomenal for growth. So much should have happened. A lot has happened. So if it has not happened, that's the potential. So that's where the investors should look at India.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me. I think it's a great thing to have a person like you who is rich at heart, who is so truthful to everyone, and he is such a smiling face. I don't feel like I'm talking to a retired IS officer. In fact, I find you more young than many people around me.
I wish I were as young as that.
So audience, this was IS Anil Swarup talking to us, and a lot of message for the stock market investors to take with them, because true richness lies at our heart. The stress management lies at us, and the leadership principles, the way we are driven, and so many role models he has. And I'm sure he has gone through all the problems and issues which we have gone through, but he has come up as a winner. My great wishes to you for your continued success, and would like to interact with you again. Thank you for being in the show.
Thank you. Look forward. Look forward.
Yeah.